I would say my coffee relationship started in France. So, and that came along a little later in life, in my, late, like early 20s, something like that. I mean, I had already drank coffee, but I didn't really have a relationship with it until I started going to France and being in France and being in Italy and really drinking espresso. And, I'd be there for windsurfing in some rainy little Mediterranean village. And I mean, what else are you going to do but sit around and do shots of espresso?
Hello and welcome to Food and Beverage Therapy Podcast, where we talk about leadership, entrepreneurship, and innovation in the coffee world. Learn from experts, CEOs, and leaders in the coffee industry on how they challenge themselves, continue to grow, innovate, and reinvent the landscape that makes up the business I love, coffee. I'm Jake Leonti, your host. I'm the cafe guru at F&B Therapy, editor-in-chief at Coffee Talk magazine, consultant, and entrepreneur, and I've worked at every link of the value chain over a 20-year career. I'm joined by my co-host, Andi Trindle Mersch, another coffee expert with over 20 years in the business, and current VP of Coffee Operations and Sustainability at Phil's Coffee, as well as the board member at the Coalition for Racial Equity. Andi, thank you for coming back again. So I just had a cool conversation with a prominent athlete. And I don't know if you are familiar with Laird Hamilton, the big wave surfer.
I know the name, yes. I'm not a surf follower, but yes. Yeah.
He's from your neck of the woods. He's from the Bay Area originally, grew up in Hawaii and lives in California now. But super cool guy, like very, very cool, very approachable. And he started a company called Laird Superfoods, and it all started with coffee. They are another coffee company that specifically uses currently all organic coffees, but just a super interesting person, but also functional ingredients. It's like really the basis of the Laird Superfood. So they put all sorts of stuff in there. It's like different types of mushrooms and different types of proteins and fats. And I don't know, do you supercharge your coffee ever? Do you ever use that as an energy?
Yeah, I do not. I'm not opposed to somebody else doing that or buying into that or believing that, however someone wants to enjoy their coffee or fuel their nutrition. I support, but no, it's not been my thing. I drink coffee purely for the pleasure of the taste of coffee. That's always been my way with it. So how about you? Do you? Yeah, same.
I'm a purist, I will say though that, when I was in LA once and I went to Bulletproof. I got a Bulletproof coffee, with got serious amounts of butter in it. Tasty, it's really. I find
interesting.
I like that fat. I think it is delicious.
Yeah, and honestly, if you enjoy that, then have it. And for sure, I don't like butter in coffee. I sometimes tell this one funny story of being an espresso competition judge years back, and we were in the final rounds, and somebody made a drink with mushroom and butter. And for whatever reason, it made my stomach go crazy wonky. Oh, wow. But it was the last round, and I had to sit on stage and, give feedback to this, I don't know how they're doing the competitions now, but it was like sit on stage and give feedback. I could barely hold it in. And then I was running out the door to get to the airport, and I literally threw up all over the cab. So that was my experience with butter and coffee. And I was like, I don't think I like it.
I'm not going back. It's one of those things.
Going back. I don't care what Bulletproof says. I can't.
Yeah, it's like if you get sick on tequila or something, you're like, I'm never drinking tequila.
Also
again.
Done. Yes, right. Yeah. You got my two. Jeez.
It's a classic. It's a classic combination.
It is a classic. The other thing though, too, I wonder, do you buy into the notion that there are actual health benefits? Like if we both agree, that we prefer taste. Yeah. All right.
I prefer, like you said, I am a purist when it comes to coffee. Like that's how I prefer it. But I buy in first to the idea of the energy being distributed more evenly, because Speaking of epic people in coffee, I worked with Todd Carmichael at La Colombe, and he had the world record for fastest journey from Hercules to the South Pole unassisted. And one of the stories of that was that, he would talk about what had the most amount of calories packed into the smallest package, right? Because he needed this fuel to get him there, but he also had to carry everything that he was journeying with, and it was butter. So he was just eating butter for like a month on this journey because it had the most calories that were distributed throughout the day. Sounds
like the most awful thing I could imagine, but keep going. I appreciate this story.
So, and then the idea like those fats, and they surround kind of the caffeine molecules. And so it's distributed as you burn it throughout the day. Same thing with the coconut oil and things like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think fats are healthy for us. I think the sugar industry has demonized fats, but I think having fats is really important for us in our energy distribution. I also like mushrooms. And so I eat them though, I've had mushroom coffee, and I'm cool with it. It tastes fine, but it's not necessarily my cup. My wife loves it, right? Like she loves Laird Superfood. She gets the creamer, and she gets the coffee mix, and like the whole thing, because for her, it's also like having a bit of a dessert for breakfast. And she also is not a big eater in the morning. So this is like her sustenance for the day is in liquid form. So I kind of see the benefit for that. I'm an eater, so I eat like breakfast.
Me too. This is a something that a joke I make, but it's actually really true. I don't like to take my calories in through liquid unless it's alcohol. Otherwise, I want to chew my food. I want to eat it. So
that's my game too. Yeah.
Yeah. Not into smoothies really for the same reason. Even if they're superfood, I want to chew or swallow more wholly. Yeah.
I think chewing's good for you. Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. It burns a little calories as you go. Yeah.
I think mentally too, for me, it's like if I was to drink breakfast, I don't feel mentally full. And so then I get hungry again. So Laird was telling me a crazy story. So Laird does his own concoction of, he'll use the superfood mix, and then he has like another creamer that he puts into it. And then he puts a couple of shots of espresso and then another protein into it. So he's making like a massive concoction of fat and protein energy. Yeah. And then he doesn't eat again until 2 p.m. So he'll live off that energy for like the morning and work out and like do all his athletic stuff and then not eat until 2. So,
and does he eat for pleasure at all? Like, is there any part of him that just enjoys delicious food, not food as fuel?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. I probably should have asked that. I mean, he did claim that he enjoyed taste of things, and he even enjoys the taste of coffee. So he likes coffee on its own too. Yeah. But he's built different in the sense that everything he does is going towards optimizing performance. Yeah. And so it's like, if he's going to put something in his body, then it has to have more than one benefit, So he's like always conditioning himself. So I think that's a difference too, because I'll drink coffee just for the sake of coffee. I'll drink coffee in the afternoon, even if I don't want an energy boost, just because it's like, well,
it tastes good. That's what exactly. It's just about the taste for me. Interesting. Yeah. I guess I do, but I believe that these supplements and, work for people. I think they work scientifically, not all of them, but a lot of them work scientifically. And there's lots of studies that show that. But just for me personally, I enjoy food and I enjoy flavor, and I don't think of, and probably I should, or maybe I shouldn't, I don't know, but I don't think of food as fuel. I think of it as part of my pleasure in life, is to enjoy something that I think tastes great.
I like that. Yeah. Cause I don't necessarily think of myself as a machine either, but
yeah, exactly. I just fuel myself. It's the oil and
but I've never done anything extreme either, and it kind of made me think though about conditioning in general, like I said, Laird is constantly conditioning himself year round. He does like all these crazy exercises for the equivalent of a day or two worth of like serious surfing hours. Yeah. And business and work life is kind of the same. Parenting is the same. You need to condition yourself throughout the year so that you'll be in the right shape or headspace to face the workload, the stress, the challenges you face on a regular basis. And Laird kind of echoed that statement, saying that it's also improves your decision-making ability. And I've seen that even recently, it's like,
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. You get bummed out, and from the pandemic, even like you get all this stress and you start making irrational decisions at a certain point. And, so I've really started taking heed to that. And again, because being a parent, being working and all these things, it's like, but as I exercise, I find that I get more equal, I kind of get more equal, and I get a more of a steady headspace, and you have like more serotonin. So you're a little bit more positive. You're like a little less fragile mentally, maybe. And, I need that mental resilience just to deal with my kid, first of all. But,
yes. And as you know, I have two. So yes.
Exactly. I was going to ask you.
Takes a lot of power.
Do you have certain routines in place that help you perform better at work and at home?
Well, I do work out every morning. I get up ahead of the family and go outside to a little area we have for working out. That is my alone time and my workout time. I do that every morning. And then I eat breakfast. Sadly, it's often in the car, but it's a healthy oatmeal with nuts and fruit and, good healthy oats. So it's good. And the interesting thing is, I think in my 20s and 20s, I hardly ever ate breakfast. I was just saving my calories until 2 p.m. on or whatever. It was super stupid. Now I eat every morning. It's really important to me. And then I eat again like 4 hours later or so. I just kind of keep it moderate.
Keep the engine running, yeah.
Yeah, I keep the engine running. And I am not good with anything in overload. I am everything in moderation, purely moderation. So I don't believe in cutting anything out 100% or living on anything 100%. I don't believe while I exercise every day, I'm fine taking a day off. I'm like, I can go on vacation. I'm not just moderation. That's my thing.
Good. You're very balanced. Yeah. You seem like a balanced person. I think that sounds healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't always, but it's really kind of my rule. It works for me.
Given we just went on the record saying that we both work out, we both agree on functional ingredients and how we feel about them. Let's turn it over to Laird. And I think we have a kind of an interesting conversation to hear about. I am here with my very special guest, Laird Hamilton, waterman, big wave surfer, and founder of Laird Superfood. Laird, welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me, Jake.
Thank you for joining me today. And, I'm not going to review your entire life today. I think there's lots of information out there. There's a great documentary for that called Take Every Wave, the Laird Hamilton story, or Life of Laird Hamilton. And I want to focus on you as an entrepreneur today.
Okay. You're in the coffee world, so I like that. You've made a whole world out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big world.
It is a big world. And that's I think that's what attracted me to it, is that it's like, it's one of those things because I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. And so I'm once I get interested in something, I focus on it 100% and kind of suck the marrow out of it and then move on to the next thing. Yeah. Coffee is one of those things where I just haven't been able to find the bottom yet. There's just like so.
Well, my wife calls that the dog with the bone. I have that problem at my house. Once I get once I lock my teeth into something, it's going to be tough to pry it out of my jaw. So
absolutely. I think what I've seen of you and of your career is that you're an entrepreneurial spirit, and you're always out there trying to push and find what's the new thing for you.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, it's authentic that way. You're ahead of the curve on this thing, or how do you get into the thing? And a lot of times it's not happening on purpose. It's not like it's a calculated, I'm going to be ahead of the curve. I'm going to go do this thing. I'm like, it's not, I wish it was that deliberate, but no, mine just comes more out of just, it seems out of interest, just where I'm led. I'm trying to follow the tracks that are there, or at least that I see.
That's really cool. I think that's the best way to do it. And like you said, it's authentic, so it's like, if that's your personal interests, and that's kind of how you get led down the right path, right? Is if you're doing it from a pure place, and then everything else sort of follows. So first of all, how long have you been a coffee drinker, and what was your earliest coffee memory?
Well, my mom was a coffee drinker, and I didn't really drink coffee I don't know. It wasn't something that I was interested in. And my coffee, I would say my coffee relationship started in France. So, and that came along a little later in life, in my, late, like early 20s, something like that. I mean, I had already drank coffee, but I didn't really have a relationship with it until I started going to France and being in France and being in Italy and really drinking espresso. And, I'd be there for windsurfing in some rainy little Mediterranean village. And I mean, what else are you going to do but sit around and do shots of espresso? And so I think my snobby side of it came, my mom was an instant coffee maker. I think she had Maxwell House, or it's one of those things. And I think having coffee from that experience was like uninteresting, but coming from kind of a more culinary aspect, I would say, it started in France. And so that really began my relationship with coffee. And then it kind of, I'd say it kind of projected it forward because, Starbucks and some of these other coffee phenomenons weren't really happening in America yet. It was still like diner coffees from, drip coffee makers with, light to medium roast battery acid in a clear container and so I think that whole espresso kind of phenomenon came to America kind of after that. So it made sense to me why it did, because it did for me when I drank it that way, and drinking it espresso style, and then becoming aware of beans, being in Hawaii, of Kona, which isn't really that great. I think we get it's more of the novelty of it. And then you start appreciating really, just better coffee. I think that, and so, and then using it as an athlete more as fuel, like use it for energy. That was and for me, it was really about that. It's like the whole, other than the ritual, it was really about energy. It was just, I want to get jacked up.
Were you on coffee when you were paddling across the channel?
Well, yeah, I didn't have any with me, it only lasts so long. I probably blew through that in the first couple hours, I would imagine. But yeah, I've fueled a lot. There's a crazy shirt I saw once. What would the world look like if it wasn't for coffee, right? And and it was there wasn't a lot in the world. So I've definitely fueled a lot of my athletic achievements and endeavors in general. Well caffeinated, I would describe it.
That's what gave me some amount of the purpose when I was a barista, was the idea that I'm sending people off on their journey today to go, come up with the next great idea, or who knows, solve a big problem because we've just activated their mind in this way. So I think that's pretty cool.
That's some truth. That's some real truth to that.
Yeah. And what is your morning ritual now with coffee?
My morning ritual is pretty, I guess I'd call it pretty fatty, pretty, I drink a high fat. I make a home concoction because I start, well, first of all, I hydrate when I wake up in the morning. That's the first thing. So I have multiple minerals and lemon and some other stuff that I drink first thing when I wake up. And then once I'm, once I have enough liquid in me then I make a pretty high fat coffee. The coffee's disguised in it almost. It doesn't do the coffee justice in a way, except if you start with bad coffee, you really have to smother it to make it tolerable. Where if you start with good coffee, then you can kind of bring that out. But I have a ghee, red palm, coconut oil. I use my original sweetened creamer. I use an unsweetened creamer for even more kind of milk, and then I use the turmeric creamer. So I use 3 of my products, and then I add a bunch of extra fat as well, and then throw in like 3 or 4 shots of espresso, and I'll drink 2 of those. And then I won't eat until 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I can go for hours. I could run a marathon on that, or do something for, I could do an athletic event that took 4 or 5 hours and not have any kind of fuel issue at all.
So you're basically drinking your breakfast.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, because if eating, I just feel like just makes me tired, because I feel like I don't go into a digestive state when I have the liquids like I do if I eat. If I eat dense food, then my body, I feel like my blood's in my stomach. I can still do stuff. I can still swim and run and bike and lift and do all the stuff with it. But it's just, I don't feel as light. I feel I liquid my, and lately I've been adding a little bit of protein. I mean, a little bit of protein to that too, just to try to get some poundage. I'm trying to kind of get myself ready for the season. So I'm trying to gain a couple of pounds, but it's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy.
So superfood's not even super enough for you. You got to do a mix plus some extra fat, plus some extra protein.
Well, you evolve along. You evolve along, actually. And I actually have produced the oil concoction. I think you have to work into that. I don't think everybody can handle that amount of oil, and some people aren't suited for it. It makes sense for me. I like the way it affects the caffeine. I don't get any kind of well, first of all, any kind of spike or anything. I get a real good energy flow, no crash. And so I kind of use that. I just use more of my instincts about how I feel and how stuff makes me feel. I like a little bit of bitterness. So I think that's part of the reason why I love the turmeric. I consume a lot of turmeric anyway. So I'm into turmeric, and it kind of there's golden milks are really nice. I can make a golden milk at the end of the day or something. As well. I like golden milks, but I'm a turmeric fan, and I like a little bit of bitterness, and it kind of brings out some of the coffee in it when you use that spice. It's interesting.
That's interesting. And you prefer the oils opposed to like a butter or something like that as your fat?
Well, I'll use a ghee. I'll use a ghee in there because they say that molecule is better for your brain, goes in the brain better. I mean, if and I'm not opposed to raw, if I can get raw butter. It's just harder to come by. It's harder to come by than. I mean, listen, I like to be closer to, to less processing, less industrial farming if I can. I'm trying to look for less of that.
I watched a documentary about you, and I learned so much that I didn't know. Of course, everyone knows you're a big wave surfer and a tremendous athlete, but I didn't realize how much of an innovator and a trailblazer that you were throughout your career. And what made you choose coffee as a direction to blaze a new trail?
I mean, honestly, it just came out. It wasn't on purpose. There wasn't it was something I was naturally doing. And the truth is I would make. And again, I didn't tell you in my right. I have always battled between the Peruvian and the Colombian altitude stuff. I like the Peruvian. It's a little smoother. I've been to the farms. I really appreciate where they're growing it. It's an environment a lot like where I grew up. It almost like if you just took me there and you open your eyes, I think it was like in the mountains behind my house. So I felt really comfortable about that. But the recipe I was making like I call it a concoction, but I was making myself these drinks in the morning, and then I would share them with friends. And then my friends, time and time again, my friend, they'd be like, okay, what combination, how much of those, how much of each ingredient, and what was the brand, because not all the brands are the same of each ingredient. And one of the friends that I was working on another project with goes, well, you should let me try to make something, like make a powdered version of it. And so the third rendition was the sweet and creamy, which is our founding product. So, which was awesome. I was like, okay, perfect. Now I have something for me, of course, and right. I can take it on the road and then share it with people. So that's how it started. I mean, I have a couple other businesses. I have Laird Apparel. I have a kind of a health and wellness, XPT Life that I do. But that was the foundation of it. And then we sold some stuff, sold some stuff online. I gave it to friends and they were loving it. And then they're like, how do I get more? And then sold it online. And then normally businesses are built, in stores and then you go online. I had a small following of people that were interested. And so then we used those guys as our our founding customers. And then it went from there. Cause I have athletes that ask me, how'd these guys find you? And, how'd you get in that thing? And I'm like, oh, they didn't find me. We just did it from scratch. And so that was the irony of it, right? Again, back not to that. We're not to the calculation, like it wasn't this calculated, we're going to be in this space and it's a growing space, it was just, I was doing it. And this is the concoction that I had come up with all the things that, I have been exposed to. I was exposed years ago to ghee and espresso, a combination of ghee and espresso, which was good. And an interesting, that was, and then I was exposed to the whole bulletproof phenomenon came around, and I was exposed to that, and there were aspects of that I liked. And then it just, because I have a tendency to want to continue to tinker. Like that's just part of what I'm interested in. It's just part of what's fun. And so that's kind of the genesis of it.
That's interesting. So it was kind of more of a grassroots development where you were just playing with the product and then kind of selling locally to some friends and stuff. How did it get to the next point of, actually becoming like a packaged product and, kind of getting formal about forming the company and selling?
Well, the online aspect was really that was, you kind of had to do it that way. When somebody ordered you, it had to be professional. And my founding partner, Paul Hodge, was a startup guy in general. So his kind of ability to do stuff, all the things, wear all the hats went well with my tinkering. So it was like a good combination. And you see that in certain businesses where you see, you have the two, you have the kind of fundamental business foundation stuff with the creative, maybe marketing side. So I think that was another kind of piece of the puzzle that came together organically, because we had been working on another project, another idea that I had, and then we were doing. So it was just, we were already the pieces were already in place.
You talk a lot about assessing risk when you're going to attempt a new feat in surfing or sport in general. Do you apply those same principles to business?
Yeah, I mean, I always try to rely on other people's experience. Especially if I'm out of my genre. I look to people, I always said, if you wanted to be good at something, go where the best people in the world are at it. And then you're just through osmosis, you're going to get, you're going to miss some of the mistakes. You're going to avoid some of the mistakes, and you're going to benefit from some of the things that are known if that's what you do. I would say risk taking is something that, for me, I feel natural doing. I think it's something that's just in my personality. I've taken a lot of risk, but when you look at the approach, it's actually pretty calculated. It's not foolhardy risk where you're just winging yourself and then being like, wow, the way we go about taking risk is pretty, we try to mitigate the things that you have control of. And then the ones you don't, and there's no benefit from worrying about those because you don't have control over them anyway. So I think there are some things about it, some ways I go about it, again, it's different than when you're taking risks for yourself versus when you have people that are relying on you, as like when you have a family. Right. It does change the dynamic in certain ways that you need to be pay more attention. I just think there's something about paying attention. And I think actually mitigating risk is really about paying attention anyway. It's really just about, seeing everything and understanding what's going on, and what you don't understand, then you better learn quickly,
Absolutely right. Yeah, as a consultant, I was part of creating a coffee company with Grace Hightower De Niro and actor Robert De Niro, which was a great experience. However, like sycophants and parasites would come out of the woodwork and try to take advantage of Grace or use us to get to her. And I had no idea the level that this would go until I was in that sphere for a few years. And I was just curious, how do you put together a team and how do you find people you can trust that are going to work well with you?
Well, I mean, they say you are the company you keep. So, first of all, I have Gabby, who's an incredible, first line of defense. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you have to believe that there's something greater than you that's helping guide you and protect you. I think having faith is a big piece of it, because I think if you don't, then kind of all is lost and you're more vulnerable to being taken advantage of that way. Some of it is you just have to believe that, that people are good and give them the opportunity to be good and not put them in a position to be defensive and those sort of things. So I think that's a big piece of it. I think who you have in those important positions. Definitely, it trickles down, right? It's a trickle down effect into the business. I mean, I think I'm fortunate in some ways that most of the people that know what I do are pretty sincere about it. It's not like I have such exposure where I'm going to have the percentages are going to go up that you have people that are not great or their intentions maybe aren't. I shouldn't say people aren't great, but so I think there's some of that. I think that's a piece of it. At the end of the day, it's got to have some trust, you gotta just that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And I think the lifestyle that you project specifically and that your brand projects kind of attracts a certain type of person, which, maybe they're a little bit more cool. And it's like a different vibration.
Well, and I think if you're healthy too, if you're concerned about your health and you're healthy, I think that's going to affect a lot of the way your brain works. I mean, truth be known, that's my feeling is that it's hard to have, if you don't feel good and you're not healthy, it will affect your thinking. I mean, now why do you think? I can imagine illness and depression are probably pretty connected. And so if you're feeling good I think for me, I feel like there is an opportunity with making products that make people feel good, like that are healthy. They're at least contributing like an added factor into their well-being will definitely draw a person that's concerned about that, but it'll also it could actually make people that maybe aren't feeling as good feel a little better, which would be a positive thing as well. So, that's why I think I feel so strongly about the brand and about the stuff that we make, because, we have that opportunity, we have the opportunity to make people feel better, and especially something like coffee or tea or hydration or stuff that you're just doing every day. There's an accumulation over time. I mean, what do they say? A little arsenic every single day eventually, will poison you. It's kind of like it's a little goodness every single day will definitely make a lot of goodness. So I think there's a big piece of that, and that's an ongoing struggle, I think, in the world to try to. We're being bombarded constantly by all kinds of environmental toxins and stuff that, some are invisible, some are visible, and trying to, mitigate that and trying to be aware of it and make it not happen. I think that's something that, especially when you talk about consumption and food and stuff, it's a challenge. And that's a real serious challenge. If you care, there's always that.
I think it's
there's always if you care. There's a if you care part.
I think it's one of the biggest issues in the country right now. Is like we don't have enough rules in place that oversee health and wellness and the food that we consume. There was that thing that came out about Subway bread having like the same particles they put in yoga mats in it. And like there's just not the rules in the U.S. to prevent these things. So for me, I think it's great what you're doing, because the more companies we have that we can trust that are going to give us, organic, clean ingredients, and it is the proper fuel for your body, I think that's a huge impact. And it's something that personally is like a hobby of mine that I'm always focused on, and especially like even like student lunches and stuff like that in schools, because it's if you look at the US, the top two industries are the pharmaceutical companies and then the healthcare companies, right? So it's like in the GDP's best interest that people are sick, that's a bad circle to start from. So the more that we can push the needle towards health, I think that's super important.
No, it's true. And unfortunately, if you're small, you have a hard time defending yourself sometimes. And these big guys can get away with some horrific stuff because they just know the rules. They write the rules, they make the rules, they do. And then they have a lot of backup too. So you don't have a lot of, a lot of defense against them. But I do believe that, through transparency, as we go, I think that people are, and especially when you talk about the pandemic and what's happened and people's concerned about, being healthy and being alive and feeling good, people are reprioritizing it. Part of it is the priority, because really the priority, you got to be your own doctor. Like Paul Chek says, man, you're the greatest doctor you're ever going to know. Because no doctor in the world is going to be able to tell you how you actually feel inside. So, and what stuff how it makes you feel and doesn't make you feel. So I think that being responsible for your own health, that's the first step, right? And then the consumer will really dictate the outcome. Because if we're not just saying, hey, we're going to just rely on you guys, we're going to take it over, then it's going to force people or force companies to make stuff that's, that are better for people, because they won't sell it if they don't sell it, then they're going to figure out how to sell it. So I think there's some of that. I think and making it better would do that. So part of it has to do with that demand. I think that's a big piece of it, but you got to care. It's like if you don't care about how good your coffee is or what you're putting in it, and it's like, then there's no incentive. But there is a growing awareness that I'm observing that makes me hopeful that people are concerned. Like we're it's like I told somebody, it was interesting during the pandemic, all of my neighbors that I never saw work out ever, all were out in the street running every day. I'm like, oh, now you guys want to run? Like, where were you guys the last 20 years? but better late than never. And at least they're, like I said, we start to become concerned about it. And concern what's in every cup and everything you're consuming. We have to start to become aware of it. The only unfortunate part is that it can be expensive to eat good, so there's always that, but you do have to put the priority on it, because everybody can drive a BMW, but then somehow it's like, hey, why don't you take some of that BMW money and put it in your grocery bag and then eat it. So again, it's where it falls, what's your priority? And I do see that. I do see people becoming concerned about it. And then trying to be a company that makes good stuff and makes it so that the people don't have to just look at every ingredient and understand what every single thing means. We see it because we've gone through ingredient changes and stuff, and people will be like, hey, well, where'd that stuff go? And how come you're not doing this? And why didn't you, so we're like, oh, cool. We have the 5 guys that really are concerned, but that means there's a bigger group that also is following along. You always have those forerunners out in front, and then you have the mass in the back. So
I think that's exactly who your customer is. Like your customer is the person who's reading the labels and really cares about what those ingredients are. Yeah, but I think that group is also in front of the group that is coming behind that. We're going to get more of that. People are just more concerned about what they're consuming because they have to be, because there's just too many problems, because we're just eating without, we're blind to eat, we're blind consuming, and you can only blind consume so long without repercussions. There's just, and the payments are expensive. Yeah, your health. Exactly right.
Exactly.
Switching gears on you here, I've heard you speak about visualization and, which is a popular tool for athletes and trying to accomplish difficult goals. Do you bring visualization to Superfoods and the business in general? Like, are you visualizing kind of where the brand is going and what your future path is?
What's interesting is that you realize, at least when I think about the company, and I think about like these big companies that just come out of, and that what you realize is that these are ideas, right? Every company is an idea. And of course you have to these are manifestation of ideas, and depending on how big the idea is, it has to be executed, but also the potential of that idea. And so I do see I see Laird Superfood. I see the consumption of people. I see a lot of people using the product on a daily basis and benefiting from that. And I see that expansion, and so that's really, and then going into other areas and other products, but kind of, building a reputation. It's like when we were kids, there were brands that my mom would just grab because of the brand made something that she trusted, or maybe she trusted the flavor. I don't know what it was, but she trusted something in it and so I think that's what I see when I think about it, and I visualize us being in a position that the customer can rely on. I mean, listen, everything within reason, because at the end of the day, unless I'm picking the lettuce out of my backyard and putting it on my plate and planting the seed and doing and have control over that every aspect of it, there's just certain things that you just cannot control all the pieces, and that's part of I'd say the price, but that's part of the what happens when we're not able to just be in control of every single piece. But yeah, I see us being reliable to do, and if at any point we're not, we will make changes and continue to modify and adapt, because we're learning too. And I think as we go, we are all learning. And so if you're not willing to make changes, then that shows that you're not willing to continue to learn. So I think I just want the brand to kind of reflect my philosophies. It's reflecting a lot of the things that I enjoy and that I do naturally. So just a continuation of that. And Gabby and I, we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that where we deem it important, there's certain things that you just can't control, and you can't be involved in every aspect of it, because you just, that kind of micromanaging really pulls you away from the bigger picture. So you kind of have to just go, okay, certain things are going to get done, and maybe it's not the exact way you do it, but there's some certain things that you just have to continue to be the gatekeeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And because it seems like you and Gabby work together on multiple levels. Was she part of the founding of this company as well?
Yeah, well, because she's always been supportive of my thing, and I actually got her through this product line, I got her to start consuming. She was not a coffee drinker, and so technically, and she'll debate this, but I say you don't drink coffee now. All you actually drink a mocha, which is really like hot chocolate that has coffee disguised in it. So she's a chocolate girl, which, that's a sign of, that's a good sign when she's going for the chocolate. So I make her a crazy one, but I used to have beans FedExed in from, I'm always like, oh, what there, I'm always, because I like it. I always say I had two French habits: red wine and espresso, and I stopped drinking wine, so I went all in on the espresso side. But yeah, she's been around the whole project since the founding. She's just such a smart partner to have, and somebody who's, she just knows how to guide you in a way that better than, and she's you can't put a price. It's like right hand, left hand.
Yeah. I listened to the podcast, the Gabby Reese show, when you were a guest, and I just thought it was really great to hear you both speak so in depth on your relationship and your philosophies and how your marriage works. And, I've worked with couples starting coffee shops and businesses together before, and it either works or it doesn't work, Yeah. And so I'm curious to hear, kind of what you think is a key ingredient that makes it work for couples that are working together.
Know your position, know your strengths, and don't try to get over, just go like, hey, I'm over here. I know what I'm, and there's an ebb and a flow. There's like a way to move. It's not always all, roses, but there is definitely, knowing your strong suits and and don't concern yourself with the things that actually you're not good at, like that they're good at. Like that, if your partner's good at this other part, don't go over there and try to like do them and their thing. Like you do your thing, and again, it is, I don't even know if it's the male, female, or it's just who has more concern and is better at it. It's like, there's certain things. It's like, and if you ever really want to find out about how things work in a relationship, try to build a house together. That makes or breaks couples. Because fun at all. You just have to go, it's like, hey, you know what? I don't really care about the colors. I don't really care about the textures. I'm going to tell you how thick the slab's going to be and how much rebar and how the beams, and I'm going to handle that stuff because that's the thing I'm concerned with, and I'm going to be like, hey, the aesthetics and the function of the thing, and you want that there, and that, great. Awesome. I'm not going to, I know when to mind my own business.
Stay in your lane, right?
Stay in your lane. And you know what? And if there's a weird, like a gray, like a lane that you're kind of both in, then you collaborate and you do what's the great saying, he goes, somebody said, be right. You always want to be right 10,000 times. And then tell me what kind of relationship you have. It's like,
that's right.
You don't need to be right. Sometimes you want to be right, but sometimes it's better just to be right to yourself.
Yeah. I was talking to Helen Russell recently, who's the founder of Equator Coffee in San Rafael, and was just on the show. And she's one of the founders of Equator, and her partner, Brooke McDonald, is a co-founder, and they've made it work for almost 30 years now. And it
Amazing.
Seems it's exactly like what you said, is like, Brooke focuses on the product. She got super nerdy on the coffee and the roasting, and Helen was really focused on the sales and marketing aspects. And so they play to their strengths. They kind of stay in their lane. And like you said, where they overlap, they collaborate. So I think that between the two of you, that means that's got to be some sound advice right there.
Well, I think it's probably consistent everywhere that people that really have, that are working together like that, when you have those kind of relationships. I think the success of the relationship is a reflection of that. And so when you see people in relationships that are considered successful, like you're still together and you don't want to, choke each other. I think you're doing that already. So to take that and do that somewhere else, like in different work or some other situation, I think building a house or whatever, I think you can, I think all it's going to do is just exaggerate, the things that are naturally happening. So if things aren't working out, there's crossover and there's friction, then it's just going to exaggerate that. If there's ebb and flow and you're working together, it's going to exaggerate that. So I think it's just going to, these things usually just exaggerate, those things that you have naturally going on.
And I wanted to circle back. You had mentioned a little bit about going to Peru, and I was curious about kind of developing the products and the sourcing of the coffee. First of all, I love Peru. It's like one of the most beautiful places I've been in terms of where coffee is grown. At the same time, though, I was curious why there is no Hawaiian coffee. Is it you prefer the flavor profile better? Or?
I do. I mean, it's Arabic versus Robusta, and it's expensive. The Hawaii stuff is so expensive, and most of the Hawaiian coffees they only put like 10 or 15%. And then they're mixing it with something else anyway. So I think that was a piece of it. We're not a per se coffee company as in the sense of we're superfood. So we have a lot of, you got to have good coffee to start with, and to make things for coffee without having, our Insta Fuel stuff, we have some really good, instant stuff as well. I like that environment. I like that flavor. I like the flavor profile a lot. I like it a little smoother. I don't love the hard hitting coffee. Usually it's a reflection of some kind of, something in the chain that's, either they're picking it green or they're flash roasting or somewhere in there, they're doing something to it that makes it not great. I don't know enough other than that. I know my taste buds and I know what a good environment is. I know what, the the farming, when you look at these little co-op farming guys are, they have their field in their house and they're growing it and they're drying it and they're doing, they're in this, like, it's pretty, like when I look at that, I can relate to that. I can go, yeah, okay, cool. Not like some industrialized, half the stuff's green and, got a bunch of nitrogen fertilizer in it and some stuff that's like, yeah, no, that's getting back to you kind of thing. So I think that's a big piece of it. But the Hawaii side of it, I think just the volumes, the demand on it, there's just not it's got a reputation, right, of it. And so I think that increases the value in a way that isn't reflective necessarily of the quality of the product itself. It's like, and that happens with a lot of brands, they can demand a price that maybe isn't a reflection of the quality of the product because they got a good brand. Which I can appreciate that, but I think that's part of the issue that we have in general in our economy is just when you're paying so much for things that they just don't cost that much. I think that's why the thing is on tilt, that we're tilted.
And inflation. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because there's not a value to equity kind of, there's no kind of equilibrium. It's like, this is a $5 product, but you're going to pay $500. You're like, okay, well, when all that $500 goes into that one side, this other side is going to be, it's just going to tilt the scale. And you see that. You see that in so many things. I believe that's one of the things that's affecting the balance of our economies. We're trying to make things affordable. Like stuff, the truth is stuff is, it's expensive to be in business and to, but you're still trying to make it so people that need it, because people that have the funds can access whatever they want. Right. So, but if you don't, and they're the ones that probably need it, the people that can't, but again, back to the value, right? What's important, like people are more concerned about, a belt or a shoe or a shirt. And then they're, that they might be in their closet for a month, but what they're putting in their mouth.
Right. And I noticed it seems that all of the coffees are organic. And so is the organic certification something that's important to you?
It is. I think when you look at organic, sometimes there is some abuse within that, within organic, because you can be organically certified and then somehow, there's somebody who maybe can't afford to be organically certified and they're not, but the product they make is as good as any organic product there is in there. Yeah. So I think there is some, I think we try to go that way because that's reflective of good stewardship, right? That's there's effort being in consciousness, but that also cost, and I always, I try to explain sometimes that they're not going to create a system that puts people out of business. So you got to make it so that they can actually do it. So if you want to be organic, they're going to make it so that you can be organic, but there's a certain level of tolerance within that, right? So, and you could have something that's not organic that is probably the most organic thing there is, but they just aren't in a position to, because maybe they're not following the criteria of that. So, but in general, yes, we do. Because again, it's reflective of our commitment to try to get good products. The customer believes that is a big piece of it. It's a little bit, some of these terms become abused after a while. When you look at sugar-free, fat-free, like all these things, you're kind of like, okay, like, is that a trend but organic? Listen, we want, I have things that I like that are almost too organic, right? All of a sudden I want to put Shilajit in something and they're like, oh yeah, you can't, it's too organic. The store won't carry it. I'm like, how's that possible? But it's possible, like it's too organic, right? So there is such a thing, right? There's not, again, so part of it is there's a balance between what the customers understand, what they know versus, and sometimes we live in a bubble where we're so out in front that we just assume that everybody knows what all these bad oils are. We just assume that everybody, we just assume. And that's our first mistake, that we just, sometimes we have to back it up and be like, yeah, no, we have to start, down with kind of from the base. And so I think that's a big piece of it. But, listen, trying to get good products and get people what they need is not easy. I mean, I have farming initiatives. Like I have some farming. I grew up farming, so I like farming, and I feel like the more in the future, the more vertically integrated that we could be in certain areas, the better. Because if I could, I can farm it, grow it, bring it, and put it in the packages and give it to you, then I have control over the whole entire length of the chain, which is what I will be doing. It's just when that happens, and that's my real desire. Like when I really look at it, I feel like, and not for every single thing that we do, because there's just certain things that, just like coffee, I'm not in an environment where I can start a coffee farm and do it like I would do it, but I see people doing it sufficiently enough that we don't need to do that. And there's a lot of them, and we could be supportive to them. But when it comes to some of these other ingredients, that's a big, for me, I feel like that's an opportunity in the future because we're going to need to do that. Like that's just going to be part of what we're going to need to do to continue to evolve, and also provide people with and provide myself with what I want. So it's usually a selfish thing. It's all back to me. It's all about
Of course.
I need that, so I'm going to make that for other people. Okay, good job.
It's called Laird Superfood. We know who it's made for. I think that's great, and you're absolutely on the nose when it comes to organic. It's easy for the customer to recognize. So that's the first step. And getting them to buy it. But then there are tons of coffee farmers that are not using pesticides. They're growing everything organically, but can't necessarily afford the cost of getting the certification or the time that it takes. So it's great to hear that you're open to both sides, but it makes total sense, especially to start with the certification, just to get that initial buy-in. I'm curious too. Do you have your own roasting facility, or are you using a third-party roaster?
Yeah, a third party roaster. That it's somebody that I just know personally. That actually my friend was already friends with them, and they're on the East Coast, and they barrel roast. They have like 6 or 7 big barrel roasting, and they're, I mean, unless you've got your own barrel and you're roasting, which you'd probably be, I'd be an amateur and mess it up most of the time. They're doing it as good as it can get, that I know of, get done, unless you're really hands on. And again, because the beans and the coffee is just one of the many, we're not a coffee exclusively like a bean company, but the dressers, they supply us with very, like I said, I was in the farms. I know where the beans are coming from. I watch the whole process. I watch the way the fermentation of them. I watch the cleaning. I watch the drying. I watch the thing. They bring them I see the barrel. I at least have touched and seen the chain to understand that there's an ability, that nothing along the way made me, I wasn't like, that's a no-go, or, we could be doing it better. I don't need, unless you're just doing it yourself and you're really like a boutique high level roaster, then the beans are great. The coffee's great. So it works. Yeah. It works for me.
I think that's so smart, because there's no need for that level of capital investment in the beginning, in the early days of the company. And, unless roasting is specifically like your passion and that's what you want to be doing, then it's normally not worth it, at least until you're a few years in and you've established some proper volume. So I think that makes total sense. You and your wife, Gabby, are both seriously into fitness and nutrition, and the functional ingredient beverage space has been growing steadily over the last 6 to 10 years. And you were right in the right place at the right time to kind of catch the wave, so to speak. What are the primary benefits that Laird Superfood focuses on? Well,
there's a lot of layers to that, right? The daily ritual really carries you through the day. It's the morning, first thing when you wake up. Coffee, middle of the day hydration, products before you go to sleep, rest and recovery. Our focus. Listen, mushrooms are a big important piece, because we've been using them for a long time. we know the value of the adaptogens, and we know the value of being hydrated. We know the value of good fats. We know the value of these ingredients that most people aren't getting in their diet, right? So you look at people's diets. I mean, in general, we're eating very few items. We eat the similar stuff consistently, and so we're just trying to get all these little trace elements and these things that your diet might not be supplying you with, right? So I just look at it that way. I've been involved with innovation, and I always say there's nothing new. It's just a new application of an old idea. You're not going to invent a plant. The plants have been here. Like let's not get too I mean, that's probably why it's not interesting to a lot of money, because in a way they can't get patents and they can't control the thing and own it and that whole thing. But having, getting, and there's a lot of space. There's a lot of room for a lot of us in this field, because everybody needs it and everybody needs some form of it. And so, I feel like these daily rituals, these daily habits that we have, I just want to get stuff in there. I want to get the minerals in there. I want to get the adaptogens in there. Just the stuff that you're not getting. That you're not getting, and replace things that you have habits with that don't have those things in them in your diet. So not, Gabby and I, we talk about, she says this all the time, we're not trying to get you to do a new thing. We're just trying to get you to just replace something you're already doing with something that has a bit more benefits. And so so that's kind of the basis. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of the basis of my kind of how we look at the brand and what we're making, the things that we're making. And it's hard to get certain things, like I said, I have some things that I try to get in there that aren't easy to get in there. I have to figure out how to get them in there. They might be too organic, there's always that. This is a new, we have some really good greens. We have a crazy greens formula that's really good that we've had and that has a lot of great stuff in it. We have a Reds formula. We have a whole line of instant stuff like instant chai, instant matcha, instant with all the creamers in it, everything, just add hot water. So we have some, it's meant to be easy. We have a whole line of bars that we came out with that kind of by accident, because we weren't really going to make bars, but then it just ended up that we got these bars, and then we were like, well, let's kind of reconfigure the ingredients, and we made our bars, and they were, it was amazing when you looked at that. There's just not that many clean bars on the market. People don't realize. And so it's true. They're always packed with sugar and just a bunch of stuff that you can't see. And the labels are long. Paul Chek is a friend of mine, and he, I don't know if you know who he is, but at the Chek Institute, he's a hilarious guy. But if you ever can see his work, Paul Chek is an amazing guy. But he had some things, and he said, if it wasn't here 10,000 years ago, don't eat it. The three white devils are white flour, white sugar, and white milk. And if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. And so I'm a little bit like, okay, I kind of like that philosophy. Like, okay, maybe ashwagandha and shilajit, maybe those are hard to pronounce, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about those big, long words that you just don't even have any idea what that is and what that means. And I'm always a little bit like, okay. But that's part of it. Puts up the warning flag. And no, I think he totally answered my question. It's focused on kind of supplemental diet. It's kind of like boosting what you're already eating on some level. And my wife loves your products, and she really got into them starting back in 2019. And that's when I discovered them, because she had them. Of course, I'm a coffee snob, so of course I'm more a purist. I will say purist instead of snob. But I try to get in there, though. I was a purist, so but I realized that it works better when you can snob yourself on the side, but then you I like it though. No, and it is, it's tasty, and especially I travel a lot. So I was always looking for like those adaptogenic sort of mixes that I could take to recover after big flights so you could perform the next day. So I think they have a perfect space there. Superfoods was founded in 2015, and in 2016, you already had annual revenues of $568K, which is
That's a big first year. So well done. And then between 2016 to 2020, revenue leaps up to 26 million. And that's tremendous growth for a 4-year period. And then again, jumps up again in 2021 to 36.8 million. So, what do you attribute this extreme growth in such a short period of time to?
I think first of all, I think the loyalty of the customer. Once you give it a couple tries, you just don't want to not use it. I think you said earlier the timing. I think that there was a good timing of the market, people becoming more concerned with it. I think that the product, like at the end of the day, because I don't care what kind of marketing, what kind of this, what you got, the product's going to keep you there. The marketing might get you there, but you're just going to leave after, where the consistency of the usage, when we see how the customer uses the product consistently, and it's the product, the experience, the taste of it, the functionality, because we talk about those two pillars. Those are the key pillars. I'm the function guy, Gabby's the taste girl, and so we're all about taste and function. It's got to have a function, otherwise don't talk to me. But that it needs to taste good, and she'll say, I could consume something terrible every day if I thought it was good for me. And she said, but most people will not. She won't. Most people won't. And the truth is, I do like flavor. So don't get me wrong, but I will consume things that are uncomfortable. And so I think that the function, the benefit of the function and the flavor, good people that believe in the brand, people that usually work in the company really believe in it. And so I think that's a big piece of it. They're not just going through it's not just a job, and that comes through in customer service, that comes through in the customers, that comes through with the employees. So I think a combination of all those things. And I mean, it's this is an ongoing battle. Like this is an ongoing battle. The CPG space is not easy. It's especially during these times and these pandemics and all the things. I feel good, in my heart about what we're doing. It's not like I'm telling somebody to, drink something that's not good for them. And just because I'm making money from it kind of thing. That's I think that I've never been good at that. Gabby always laughs because she's like, yeah, you just can't help yourself. You always have to, say either what you're thinking or what the truth is. Like, it kind of has that problem, but it's, but I think that's
problem. It's a good problem.
I think that's it. I think that that's the main reasons for that, because we just get reoccurring use. Once people try it, they just stay on, and then we get it somebody else. So that's the growth. Maybe not as, maybe if we had a huge marketing budget, we just threw a bunch of money at it, we could explode the thing. But ours has been pretty steady grassroots, usage, and we're striking a chord somewhere. There's it's an area that people are, I feel like part of it is that the Starbucks train the people to want, and then that's why you have these boutique and coffee companies, and you have all these kind of this expansion in the coffee field in general, because they coming from no espresso to Starbucks. That was like the first step. And now the people are educated. Now they're like home espresso machines and good beans. And so now they're becoming, and it's interesting because if you look at Europe and you think about like Nescafe, like one of the most, is that the whole, is that the course of the life of it? Now, is it into the high level instant? Because it's kind of weird in a way, culturally, like you still have the cafes where you go get your espresso with your buddies, but the like a high consumption is instant. And and I think part of it is my own theory, between you and I and your audience, it has to do with it, is that the instant gives you a more instantaneous kick. So because of the way that's
the way it dissolves,
absorption
so
is,
the absorption.
That the absorption, I think, gives you a more instantaneous boost, which I mean, obviously coffee drinkers are looking for.
Well, one of the benefits of the superfoods is that because it is mixed with the different fats and oils, is that it gives you that level kind of lasting energy, which is a great benefit. Also, I think that part of it is people who are fitness minded and health minded, they get into the ritual and the consistency of like the workout and those routines. And coffee is a ritual and routine that people do every day. So when you can bring these two things together, then you get addicted to coffee, you get addicted to working out. And when you can combine them, then that becomes like a powerful sort of emotional need. So I think that's contributing to functional beverages in general. I think that's a big help.
It's working for me.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I'm on both of those things.
I just start with me. It's back to me again. It's all, no, I'm just saying, but I mean, listen, it's got to start with you. Right? At the end of the day, I feel like all the stuff starts with you. And if it starts, then you can resonate out, because if it's not working for you, then probably not working. It's like any innovation I've done, sports stuff or fitness stuff. I mean, it started with me, like, this is unbelievably great. This is amazing. And then somebody tries it and they go, wow, this is unbelievably great. It's amazing. And it goes out from there. But if it doesn't start here, where do you go then? Then you're just kind of, I don't know, you're selling lies, or you're just a bullshitter. But it's
snake charmer, as they say.
Well, there's plenty of those out there, no doubt. But they might not even know what they're doing on purpose.
Yeah, right. Plausible deniability. How is it? So you have this superfood brand, you have the apparel brand. You had another book come out not too long ago. How is it that you're balancing time between business and family and surfing, and how do you put that all together?
Well, I mean, I listen, that's the achievement, right? Like at the end of the day, for me, I feel like the real goal, right, for me in personally, or my personal challenge or my personal goal in life is to be able to do to balance it. Like, that's the challenge. The challenge is not to be, oh, you're a great surfer, or you're a great athlete, or you're a great businessman, or no. How about you're great? How about you're just good at all? You can do that. You're a dad, you're a husband, you're a lover, otherwise, what else are you doing? Like, first of all, like family. And if my family's not good, and my kids aren't healthy, and my relationship with Gabby's not good, it's a no-go. There's nothing to do. So priority, structure of the priority. First house, first person, first me.
The core.
Again, back to me. I got to be okay. I got to do what I need to do for me, and make sure that that's not interfering with these other things I need to do for me, for them, for the thing, and then go from there. And I think that that's I go, you want to talk about success and real achievement on the earth. Like, this is it. This is, you want to, I mean, this is the long game. Like, I'm not talking about, hey, what did I do when I was whatever, like, I'm talking about the long game, the real game. The real game is, okay, you can do you have the family, you have your sanity. First, your sanity and your health. Then you have your your relationship with your wife, your partner, life partner, your family. Then you have your profession and your work and your business. I mean, now we're starting to get into something. Now we got ourselves something that's worth, fighting for. Like, now we got ourselves a challenge too. We got ourselves a real challenge that probably going to take 60, 70, 80, 90 years to, play out.
It's the pursuit, really, right? It's like,
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm, what are we doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, what are we doing? We're down here. We're on the planet. Like, what are you doing? And if you're having some issues with one of those areas, maybe just try to eliminate something else that maybe you're doing, so you got some time. Yeah. Because maybe you're doing some other things that are taking up time that aren't giving you the time that you need for those other things. And then you find all of a sudden you actually probably maybe even have more time than you even thought, and you're still doing all those things. So it's funny how that is. It's funny how that works out. All of a sudden you're doing everything and you have more time. How'd that work out? I don't know, but because maybe you're just doing the things that there's some sort of prioritization, right? There's some sort of, I don't know, you go there, you just you lay it out and you try to, and then it's just daily, right? Then this is just a daily thing, the thing that you do that you just, and it's ongoing. And it's probably not that glamorous. I mean, I have glamorous things that I've done. Like I look at my life, I go, yeah, I've done some pretty glamorous things. You're at a giant wave. It's pretty glamorous, but that's just one little road on a vascular system, like that's like for me, I feel like that's a big, and just keeping it all, try to keep everything in perspective, keep it all in perspective. And Gabby has a saying I really appreciate, which is I get to. When people go, oh, I have to go to this, I have to. No, I get to go there. I get to do this. I get to and that changes that, you change the dynamic. You just change the word and all of a sudden it's something, all of a sudden it's an invitation. It's not a command. It's not like it's not an order. It's so I think there's some of that. I think again, it goes back to, your values, what's important to you. What do you, do you need the fancy thing or what's your, where are you putting, is stuff you're putting in your mouth? Is sleep important to you? Like, how important is sleep to you? Like, pretty important. Like, it's important to me. Like, I'm like, time to go to bed. Good night. And they're like, it's 8:30. I'm like, yeah, I know. I got 30 minutes to try to go to bed. No. So again, window. But it's all the priority, right?
Yeah.
And then, it's amazing. You're well rested, you're well fed, you're well nourished. Oh man, you got your tolerance is crazy big, crazy tolerance, crazy endurance. But bad sleep, bad nutrition, not feeling good. Wow, no tolerance, zero tolerance.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
I mean, it's it's like need
an extra coffee of all these things.
Yeah, an extra coffee won't work.
Absolutely true. Laird Hamilton, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great learning from you and listening to the journey you've been on with coffee and Laird Superfood. And I hope we can keep in touch. And I'd love to continue seeing how the story evolves.
Oh, here we go. Another day. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again. Good chatting with you.
Aloha. Have a good day, Jake. Take care.
Cheers.
And love to the family.
Thanks. You too.
Ciao.
Ciao. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcasts. A very special thanks to our guest, Laird Hamilton. Thanks as always for your support and listening. Please feel free to share this with a friend and get more people to listen. Always love to hear feedback and interesting ideas. If you have a guest that you think would be perfect for our show and you'd like to hear interviewed, please feel free to hit us up at info@fnbtherapy.com. Thanks and take care.